Now on to the report from the Campus Development Task Force, affectionately known as CDTF, and that will be Barb Dumond and Roger Jacobs. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barb Dumond, and I have been chair or co-chair of the Campus Development Task Force for over 3 years now. And today we want to update you on several things. So today's goals are we're going to look at where we are and how we got here. We're going to identify some obstacles that we are facing. We're going to present some cost estimates. And we're also going to look at funding options. I know that we'll be talking about a lot of things today, and it'll be hard to digest it all. So this recording and this presentation will be put up on our website later this week, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. We'll have a link in our weekly bulletin. If you have any questions, we won't have time at the end of this presentation to take them, but we encourage you to put them in the chat room. We will be recording the chat room questions. In addition, you will have an opportunity to send the CDTF questions at our email address, or if you know Pam's or my personal email addresses, you can also send that there. Your questions will be answered during a town hall opportunity that we'll have to discuss this presentation on February 7th after the service. I know that some of our slides will get kind of wordy today, and the reason for that is I want you to be able to go to the website and actually understand the slides as they come up. Sometimes I know when I attend webinars and they just give me the presentation slides, I don't always know what they're talking about. So please excuse the wordiness of some of our slides, but I think it will help you in the future. So how did this all begin? As Reverend Ben and Pam has said, we bought the property on 3/14 in 2015. And the pre-work for the capital campaign actually began in about April of 2017, a year and a half to 2 years after we bought the property. And it began over a dinner conversation with Reverend Ben and 2 congregants. And we are talking about how we had the property, but didn't have any plan for it. And thus began the Beyond Our Imagining capital campaign. We are now in the building, becoming, and belonging phase. This started after the capital campaign in December of 2017, when the Campus Development Task Force was assembled. There were many people on that task force, and throughout the years, people have come and gone, both on the task force and as people helping out on the task force. Currently, our members are Carol Hewen, Reverend Pam, Doug Henderson, Reverend Ben, and Betsy Taub. And also right now, Roger Jacobs is doing an immense amount of work for the CDTF. So we begin all of our meetings with our guiding light. This is what guides us in our work. First, the UUSM vision statement. Together, we create a welcoming, diverse, and vibrant community where accessible, sustainable campus is a sanctuary for spiritual growth, a center for transformative love and justice, and a home for liberal religious exploration, education, and empowerment. In addition, the CDTF has also created our own vision statement. We at UUSM envision an aesthetically beautiful, multifunctional, environmentally responsible, harmoniously integrated campus that supports, enhances, and expands the sacred purpose of our congregation. We heard about the legacy of our ancestors and how they have brought us this far in both what we do as a community and what our home is. My question to you as we go through this presentation is, what will be our legacy to the 7th generation after us? And I asked you that when you see the symbol of the chalice on a slide, that you repeat that question to yourself and think about that. Here's where we started the capital campaign. A group developed a master plan. And in that master plan, they envisioned a ramp along our Ellsworth Street and an entrance into our tower, the main entrance to our church, one ADA restroom in our main building, a new minister study, and a remodel of the property at 314. The goal, $750,000. But they asked us to imagine beyond that. And so we raised $2.2 million. Wow, what an amazing accomplishment. So here we were, we had a plan, we had a master plan, we raised capital funds, but now we had more funds than we needed. So we had to see that we were kind of putting the cart before the horse now. We needed a new master plan to help us spend those funds. So we had conversations with the congregation, and here's what we imagined. First of all, we imagined ADA universal design upgrades throughout the campus to bring the campus up to code and beyond. We imagined more ramps to all of our buildings. We imagined more ADA restrooms than just the one in the main building. We imagined a sanctuary that had a level floor that was accessible from all areas. We imagined hardware and other upgrades that were accessible. Sinks and water fountains that could accommodate a wheelchair. Assisted listening devices. And a playground for our children. We also imagine an aesthetically beautiful campus that serves our mission. An upgrade to the Jesus window. And I must say, these images are not from our church, but they are imagining into the future. Even more restrooms, not just ADA. Wonderful classrooms for our children, but also for the preschool that uses our facilities. Wonderful landscaping, meeting areas and rooms for our youth to meet, an updated social hall, an updated kitchen, efficient heating and air conditioning units, solar panels, storage that was upgraded and really met our needs, painting outside and inside, new signage, a monitor so that we can better see the hymns and different things for during our worship service. Meeting rooms, updated seating in the sanctuary that got rid of our pews and added chairs, which are more flexible in terms of the use of our space. Some art for the sanctuary. New windows that are energy efficient. Let's see, what does that one? A labyrinth, lighting on our tower, a wonderful entryway, a memory garden, classrooms that could be divided depending upon the size of the crowds gathered, storage in Beck Hall, and finally a new system for our name tags. Then we had a reality check. I think, Roger, are you talking to this?
So Barbara has discussed our visioning process and our aspirational goals, and now we'll segue into the reality of construction. The story I like to tell is one of my very first visits to the church a guy that became a good friend of mine, Jeff Becker, and probably was a good friend of all of yours as well. He and I kind of hit it off, and I was discussing some of the charms of the building, and he famously told me at coffee hour, yeah, but don't get used to us because we're not going to be here very long. We're actively looking around, and we're going to move out of here in a year or two. Well, that was news to me. That was 30 years ago. And through a long process, we've decided that this is our home, and it has its charms. It also has its drawbacks, as any old building does. And we're going to make the best of it, and we can do a lot with it. But we first had to address some pretty significant deferred maintenance. The slide says 30 plus years. It was at least 30 years. Probably chief among those, at least in terms of the funds expended, was the roofing project, which wasn't just the roof. It was a rehab of the tower, weatherproof envelope, the replacing of all the shingles, the rebuilding of the louvers in the decorative windows there, a complete recladding of the sheet metal that goes around the crenellations at the top, and other sheet metal projects. It was a big project, and it turned out very well. That roof had not been fixed in at least 50 years. It was long overdue, and it was time that we did the roof, and it came out very well. Another project would be the stained glass windows. This is a specialty project that's not really within the wheelhouse of most contractors. And these are some of the crown jewels of our sanctuary. And we decided to address these because it was necessary to not only address some of the deferred maintenance on these, which had not been done in at least 20 years, and address these as a separate project because we knew we would want to get this done anyway. That project is now complete. The stained glass windows are in the best shape they've been in for decades. And we also managed to replace, if you'll recall, the old diamond shaped or diamond motif stained glass windows in the sanctuary and in the narthex, what we called the Harlequin windows, and they now better reflect the overall design of the main windows. That project is behind us. Talk about prosaic reality. We had a small blockage in the sewer system that developed into a large blockage in the sewer system that developed in the sewer backing up into the RE building. I don't think I can stress that that's not a good situation. We addressed that. This is a project that well exceeded the typical budget that could be covered by the annual facilities budget. And it turns out that the actual blockage, as always, was in the worst possible place, which is in the line buried under Beck Hall. It was an expensive repair, but thanks to Diana Candy, that is complete and all is well. The Deodar cedar at the corner of Ramona and East Santa Ynez has always been a head scratcher for us. We like trees, but this one had outgrown its usefulness. It was completely out of scale to the building beneath it and any likely building to replace 314. More problematically, it was dropping limbs and it was impacting the roof and putting holes in the roof of 314. And so it really was a safety hazard to life and limb and to the property. And after a lot of discussion and multiple bids, we removed that cedar tree, which coincidentally kind of opens up some of the design constraints that that tree represented for any new building. We replaced the windows upstairs in the two offices. These days, not many people segue up there, but if you ever have, you may recall that some of the old windows were these old louvered or jalousie windows. Not sure whoever thought that was a good idea. It didn't go with the design of the building at all. And perhaps more importantly, it was impossible to keep those rooms warm. Right now, one of those offices is used exclusively by Homework Central. And the day after those, the day after the new windows went in, I got a call from Homework Central. They were just effusive in their thanks for the fact that they could actually warm up that space now. So that was a long overdue improvement. We have two furnaces in the basement. Talk about prosaic. Out of sight, out of mind, but you know it when you're cold. The best we can tell, these are original furnaces dated from the 1950s. and it was becoming increasingly difficult to find parts for them, and they were increasingly cantankerous. And the estimate that we have is that they were about 50% efficient. So we just decided to replace them. Again, this is an item that well exceeded the annual facilities budget. And so we used capital campaign funds to do this. That project is now complete, again, thanks primarily to Diana Candide. And we were able to replace them with 2 state-of-the-art furnaces that are over 95% efficient. That project is complete and behind us. We also devoted some funds to the website upgrades, which Sheila Sandow took charge of. The previous website was felt to be a hindrance to communicating with our members and the many changes that we're anticipating. And also it was a hindrance to, we felt, drawing in new members. And so the decision was made to spend some capital campaign funds on upgrading the website because there simply was no money in the budget to do that. All of these projects now are complete, and Barbara will discuss briefly what these items cost and how they are going to impact our budget going forward. So the other reality check was with 314. Some of you may recall that the original plan was to remodel this building into the Swiss Army knife of spaces, where it could be a rental unit, it could be a minister's study, it could be a intern minister's studio apartment upstairs. We could use it for offices. We weren't sure what we were going to do with it, so we were going to do it. We were going to remodel it to be the most flexible space that we could imagine within the constraints of the footprint of that building. We're also planning to build a new minister's study that would be a small but purpose-built facility behind the house where the dilapidated garages are now. That would have something that would be closer to a state-of-the-art meeting space. The more we looked at this building and the more advice we got from the contractors that we met with was it would cost more to rehab that building and still be seriously constrained with what we could do with it than to just put up an all new building. And so 314 segued into our plans for a new purpose-built state-of-the-art RE building. Not really going to talk about that in this presentation. It's an entirely separate project. We're really just going to talk about the improvements that we are planning for what we're calling, the main campus, which is the sanctuary building, the RE spaces, and the office building. And here we are. This is a floor plan of those 3 buildings. For orientation, I think Barbara can run her cursor around here. We've got Ellsworth Avenue on the west side there, and we've got East San Ynez running horizontally along the top. The leftmost building, of course, is our main sanctuary. And in the middle, we've got the RE building. And then on the right, we've got our office building. Both for budgetary and programming reasons, we're not going to be able to affect the changes that we want to all these buildings at the same time. The permit that we have before the city right now covers all 3 of these buildings, but we have divided this project into multiple stages. And so I'll briefly discuss how we see that going forward. The first phase is going to be the sanctuary itself, basically everything except back hall and the kitchen. That's going to be our primary focus. The second phase, or what we're currently calling phase 2, would be upgrades to the office building. It might not necessarily be the second phase that we undertake. The third phase right now is envisioned to be Beck Hall and the kitchen. The fourth phase would be the RE building and the adjacent courtyard. And finally, but not necessarily last, because it could be concurrent with some of the other work, would be the landscaping behind the lot at 314. And so now I'd like to discuss, Barbara and I will review some of the bullet items that are going to go into these 3 phases to see how your thoughts and your suggestions, your vision for our spaces were incorporated into our plans for these rooms. There are some uncertainties here. There are always uncertainties in construction. A big one is, when are we going to get our building permit? The permit has been in front of the city for almost a year now. It is a subject of negotiation between the city and us, the owners. This is not unusual, but a lot of this is out of our hands. The city's ability to process permits has been really slowed up by the pandemic. And some of their requirements we think are unreasonable, and we're in negotiations with them to have those modified. We think we're close to getting a building permit, but we don't know that. Will a phased occupancy of this space be okay? As mentioned, we're putting in for a building permit for all 3 buildings, but we don't anticipate doing the work on all 3 buildings at the same time. That's typically not the way it's done. Will the city allow us to move it back into the sanctuary, knowing that the other phases have not been complete? There's precedent for that, but again, this is a question by design, we are not going to ask the city now, because we just feel like it would be opening up too many questions that we're actually not able to answer with any specificity right now. The impact of COVID is ongoing. The availability of contractors, the ability of the city to process our permits, and also materials. That leads to delay, and delay leads to increases in materials and labor costs. And finally, how to fully fund our dreams. Because as you're going to see, after we went through the visioning process, our new plan is going to cost more than the funds we have on hand. And we'll talk about that a little bit more going forward. So here's an order of magnitude look at where the money has gone and will go. The capital campaign takes money to make money. The deferred maintenance is some of those projects that I just mentioned that we felt we needed to do. Pre-construction costs are things like for the architect, city permit fees, consultants, inspection fees, and so forth. The bulk of the funds would go to construction, as you would expect. And furnishings is something that's not on our building plans, but obviously we have to have furniture to put in the building. Chief among those would probably be the new chairs for the leveled floor in the sanctuary. But we also have curtains and items for the Beck Hall that we'll talk about in a little bit. So let's segue to phase 1 and look at that a little bit. But I'm sorry, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara and let her discuss where the funds have gone to date, both in terms of deferred maintenance and for the capital campaign and other costs.
So the capital campaign, as Roger said, you have to spend money to make money. And they spent a total of almost $92,000 for that. And where that money went was we had a consultant that cost $25,000. Capital campaign expenses, this is paperwork, renting halls, having a celebration, and other expenses, $22,000 plus, and our original architect, which is almost $45,000. Thus far, we have also spent $277,000 on the maintenance. So that went to our new roof, new metal on the tower, painting, new furnaces, removal of the cedar tree. This includes not only the removal, but also city fees for replacement of the tree, access controls for 2 ADA doors, and the windows above the apartment, some electrical upgrades, the stained glass and tracery. Other funds we have spent, pre-construction costs. Again, around the same amount that we have spent on maintenance thus far, so $278,000 if we round. So those costs have gone to, this is our landscape architect, our building architect. We have paid $176,000 plus on that, and we still owe them on contract 140, almost 147,000. That includes both the contract for the main campus and for the building at 314. We did the website development. City fees are quite substantial when we do a submittal. So these fees include both 314 submittals, which is going through the planning department right now, and also the fees for the building department for the main campus. Then, of course, there are always inspections that need to be done, reports, and also a site survey. These all help us to understand better the condition of the campus and what we need to do to move forward. And we've had a couple of consulting firms that have also provided reports on energy efficiency and climate change and where we should go with our building construction based on those. So let's put it all together. Here's our summary expense to date. Our capital campaign, which is almost 92,000. Our maintenance costs, which were about 278,000. Our pre-construction costs, which again were almost 278,000, for a total of $647,119 that we have spent of the capital campaign so far. So how does that leave us? What funds are left? Capital campaign, we raised $2.2 million. We have spent almost $648. We have an unpaid contracts commitment of almost $147,000. So our remaining funds are $1.4 million. That's a lot to digest. And that's the reason why this presentation is available to you, will be available to you on the website later this week. So let's talk about the phases, what's in them, and the costs that we have received. The costs that we are going to present to you today are budgeting estimates only. We have signed no contracts yet for actual construction, and the contracts that we do sign, we will have to go through and develop some more detail in our project before we'll come to a final contract figure on that. I'm going to turn this back over to Roger to explain phase one.
Thank you, Barbara. So I'd like to just briefly step you through the items, the main items that are going to go in phase one. So again, the red outlined area is the main building, and that would be encompassed in phase one. A big improvement is to level the sanctuary floor to facilitate a more flexible use of that space, perhaps including things like formal dinners, weddings, and so forth, and just to facilitate different kinds of services for our own use. ADA is a big driver of this project. Barbara's cursor can show you the large ramp that we're envisioning for Ellsworth. We'll enter into a new ADA powered door into the narthex there. And there will also be a new ramp connecting currently the chancel down to the choir room. Again, that's a requirement to make that space ADA accessible. And we're also going to have another ramp leading from, I'm sorry, it's
this one.
Yeah, down to the down to Beck Hall from the Ann Benner room. An early improvement we wanted to make was to put an ADA restroom finally into the main building. We spent a long time, much discussion about where was the best place to put that in the building. And we kept going back to the corner of the Ann Benner room as being the best place. And that is where it's going to go.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've got a delay here for some reason. Oops. Here we go.
We're also envisioning some steps or upgrades to the actual 4 entrances to the main building. There at East Santa Ynez and over on Ellsworth there on the corner, the choir room entrance, and then in Beck Hall. Those landings would be completely rebuilt. So will all be strictly ADA, but they will all be more ADA friendly. Storage is always a problem. We are going to claim some of the room in the Hemingway Lounge and put in storage along that wall that's shared with the Ann Benner room. Some of that storage will open into the Hemingway Lounge. Some will open into the Ann Benner room. And this is going to be one of the spaces where some of our tables and chairs and all the other items that we store now under the stairs and elsewhere. Almost everything that's outlined in red there would get a new flooring surface. Won't go into the choices right now. Undoubtedly on the sanctuary, it will be wood of some kind. We wanted to save the existing wood that doesn't appear to be cost effective. And the other spaces will probably have a man-made material, but upgraded from what we currently have there. Of course, new lights, new hardware on all the doors and so forth. 3 new automatic door openers. One we've already mentioned entering into the narthex. Another one going out the new entry from the Ann Benner room out onto the courtyard. That'll be a double door. We're going to put a powered door leading from the Ann Benner room down to Beck Hall. And the reason for that has to do with the fact that we cannot find a good way to put a landing in there. So we really cannot have a door without really cannot have an ADA door without powered access and not have a landing for someone in a wheelchair to pause on. So as we go through this, a question you should be asking yourself is, how are these improvements meeting your vision for this space? Do they address what you were picturing? Or are they hitting the items that are important to you? And that's a question you should repeatedly ask yourself. And those are we would like feedback on that. And we'll take that in the chat and also in your comments after the meeting. As Barbara mentioned, this will be available on the website. So to do all these things, and again, these are all items that are currently in our construction drawings. The estimated total for that is $750,000. And I should mention, we just got a subsequent estimate in the last few days from another contractor that's about $100,000 more than that. They don't quite compare apples and oranges. And because there are a number of unknowns, some of the allowances that are incorporated into these estimates are probably on the high side. But I think that this number gives you a ballpark number of what these improvements are going to cost. However, there are some things that aren't in the construction drawings that we know we want. So again, the estimate for what's in the construction drawings is $750,000. There are some things that we would dearly like to have, and we'll put them in the needed category. That would be new sanctuary chairs. If we're going to raise the floor, we're going to need some new seating. Now, these items are not things that we feel like we need to go to the architect for. These are things that we can do in-house or as separate standalone projects not involving the architect. We want to upgrade the audio visual into the sanctuary and also the assisted listening and an upgraded sound booth to replace what's there now. Tom McCune has designed us a new sound booth, and that will get built shortly after the main work is done, or as a separate project to come later. We need to remove the organ console from its current location so that we can raise the floor there. And then we have to reinstall it. This requires a separate specialty subcontractor. That does not appear in the plans. To put in the new ADA ramp and the new entrance there along Ellsworth, this sign, the old manual sign that's there now, will have to be removed. And we're envisioning a new electric sign probably wall mounted in the vicinity there, ideally controllable from the office. So no more manual rearranging of lettering. That will be a separate project. And again, if any of these projects appeal to you and you feel like you'd like to get involved in those, we could use some help. We will remove the existing storage locker in the choir room. We need to replace that. The glass in the sanctuary and probably the light elements in the sanctuary lighting will be replaced. That currently is not in the plans. That could easily be a separate project. Other possible upgrades that are arguably less needed would be everybody's perennial favorite, the Jesus window. We just don't want to tackle that one right now. We've got some ideas, and we're not going to make any changes there without engaging the congregation. Don't worry, but it is on our radar, as is new doors, new exterior doors from Ellsworth and Santa Ynez. It might surprise you to know that they are not in the plans currently. That is by design. That is after lengthy consultation with the architect. We know we want to replace those doors. We will replace those doors, but for reasons that are sort of beyond the scope of this discussion, they are not in the plans right now. We have plans, as Barbara briefly mentioned, to put some exterior accent lighting on the tower. The infrastructure, the mounting hardware to do that, we incorporated as part of the roofing project when we redid the shingles on the tower. That was the time to do that. And so that is a project that's waiting to move forward. We also have a plan to possibly backlight the stained glass at night. And both of these would be to create a much more vibrant and inviting presence of the church into the community. So the cost to do all that, we have not yet replaced the windows in the Hemingway Lounge or in the bathroom adjacent to the Hemingway Lounge or the little foyer window adjacent to the entrance there. We would like to do that, but that could be a standalone project sometime in the future. It is estimating the cost to do everything you see above there, plus the previous $750,000, would be approximately $900,000. That's phase one, and I'm sure you have questions. But now Barbara will take us on into phase two.
Again, I encourage you to put your questions in the chat, which will be recorded so we can answer them at the town hall. So this is phase two. This is the cottage. And we're mostly bringing this up to ADA standards and also providing a little better kitchen facility and meeting room. So we are going to begin by taking out the chimney. This is an unsafe, unusable chimney and fireplace. So we'll be taking that out and we'll be adding cabinet storage in there. The other thing that we'll be doing is we'll be changing out the door to this front office. Right now, the door is here and it's fairly narrow. We want to add a different door here that is wider to accommodate wheelchairs and also is a more direct route from our entry area here. We will have a new ramp in the front yard that is up to ADA code. New floor in the restroom, which is here, and in the kitchen and the hallway that is adjacent to this restroom. There's a doorway here between the front office and this hallway, and this is not ADA standard, so we will be widening this doorway. Here is a small restroom that also is not up to ADA standards. We will be increasing the size of that, and in doing so, we will have to move this wall about a foot into this office space. And this is the new ADA kitchen here. that will have a lower sink, and also it will have room in the kitchen area here for a better meeting facility. It is our intention to eventually take this front hall entry area and take the lounge chairs and things out of it, because we'll have meeting room elsewhere, make this into the main office area, make this into the place where we have our machines and our storage, so that we can open up the kitchen area then for meetings and conversation. Interior painting throughout. And again, imagine how we will be using the space to fulfill our mission and how it will serve the mission into the future. So our estimated cost for this part of the project is $343,000. So here we are, our construction costs in the drawings, $343,000. Possible upgrades. We didn't anticipate that there would be any necessary things that we would have to do during the construction phase. However, we all know that things do pop up during construction that may necessitate that other category that Roger was talking about, which is necessary but not in the drawings. But other possible upgrades that we're looking at are new double pane windows, solar panels, exterior and interior painting and repairs. And the overall estimate for these upgrades is $400,000. Again, what will be our legacy? I'll turn this back over to Roger.
Okay, but wait, there's more. So returning to the main building, what we're calling phase 3, but it might be moved up in the priority. This is Beck Hall and the kitchen. So again, we have what's in the construction drawings, and that would include removal of the loft and repair the walls once the loft comes down. This will open up the view towards that main window along Ellsworth there. And the loft is underutilized now, and it was an afterthought when the building was first constructed. And we're going to remove that, and we think improve the overall aesthetic and usability of the space. New lighting and electrical upgrades. We'd like to replace all the lighting that's currently hanging from the rafters. Those were afterthoughts, it's quite clear. We have some plans for some thoughtful and more flexible lighting that will improve the lighting and be more attractive at the same time. Barbara will point out some areas where new cabinetry would go. One is under the main window there along Ellsworth. Some large cabinetry along the wall shared with the sanctuary, and then more cabinetry along the wall shared with the kitchen. The design of this is TBD, but this is where our chairs and our tables and our kitchen linens and so forth are going to go. We're going to modify the heating vents to make the room more comfortable. Right now, they're all along the one wall. We're going to distribute them more evenly around the space so that we get better heating. And again, this will facilitate the possible use of the space for rental activities. It currently planned to put some ceiling fans, probably hanging from the rafters. And this will better circulate the warm air from the tall space, down to where the people are, and again, make the room more comfortable. We've got some acoustical panels along the wall there, or high on the wall, shared with the kitchen. They're not attractive. We probably do need some acoustic moderation in the building when we're done, and we will replace that then with something more aesthetically attractive and probably more effective. Paint, that's a big duh. We also want to upgrade the door leading out the back to something that's more ADA compliant. Not part of phase 3, but eventually there would be an ADA ramp leading out from those doors down into the courtyard. All right, I think that's the last item. This one's a little esoteric. Take some explaining, but Barbara will circulate the cursor there. Right now, the entrance to the basement is through an outside door in the courtyard. The plan is to remove that door and enter the basement through a door in the kitchen there near where Barbara's cursor is. This requires removing the small bathroom that's there in favor of the stairs, and that we would also allow us to rebuild the custodian's closet there into something larger and more accommodating. So we would lose that small restroom, but keep in mind, we're going to have a large brand new ADA restroom just on the other side of that wall in the enter room. So we're not going to be losing bathrooms. So the estimated cost to do these items that appear in the construction drawings is approximately $400,000. So again, the cosmic question here is, how does this space, how do these improvements conform with your vision for the space and how you see us using that now and in the future?
I want to jump in here, Roger, only because I see that something is off of our list, and that is a total remodel of the kitchen. There's a wall here that our refrigerators are against. There's a little janitor's closet there. Our idea is to tear out this whole area and start anew. The only thing that will be left is the vent over the stove.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant omission.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that dropped off the slide. Oh, there it is. It just got in the wrong order.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. All right. So again, that's what's in the construction drawings now. As always, there are things that we really, really would like to do that aren't encompassed in the plans or in that $400,000 budget. And that would include needed, but not necessarily in the drawings, is an additional entry into the kitchen between Beck Hall and the kitchen. This would be where the current pass-through is. Right now, everyone that gets in or out of the kitchen has to go through that one doorway. When we have large dinners, we're constantly bumping into each other, and it's just not very efficient. We have a plan to put a doorway in where the pass-through is. There'll be a net gain of storage, so that's not a problem. And this will significantly improve the circulation from Beck Hall into the kitchen. As people, you can have a circular pattern going through the kitchen into Beck Hall and back into the kitchen. It will greatly facilitate accommodating dinners and large meetings in Beck Hall. We'd like to have some rolling carts for the coffee service items. These would probably be stored in some of the cabinetry that Barbara pointed out on the plans, but they're not in the architectural drawing. Other possible upgrades that perhaps are a little more arbitrary would include new windows and curtains. What we have there is original construction. We would dearly love to mitigate the ugliness of the fire sprinkler system. It would also probably include changing out the control panel, which very few people have actually seen, but it lives in the basement right now. It's somewhat problematic, and we've been advised we probably would want to replace that at some point in the future. And of course, actually, the next item is hiding the sprinkler pipes that are in Beck Hall. And that's one that's near and dear to me. So if we include all those items with the $400,000, we're looking at possibly $450,000 for what we're calling phase 3.
So we move into phase 4. And phase 4 construction cannot happen until we complete the building at 314. Reason being, for one thing, it will take away some of the classroom area that we have now. But even more importantly, we need to move the preschool into the new building before we can start the construction here. We don't want to disrupt their program. And also, every inch of the courtyard here is included in their license. So we cannot add any structures to the courtyard until we move the preschool. So what's included in the drawings? We will be creating a new core of restrooms. We'll be taking away classroom space in order to do that. We envision 5 different restrooms, one at least that's a child height toilet with different heights of sinks. We will also be taking out the 2 smaller restrooms that are here, and we will be creating an ADA restroom. Not only will we be installing 88 height sinks, we will also add an outdoor drinking fountain. We have 2 small classrooms up here at the top near the Santa Ynez Avenue with a double doorway here. However, these 2 classrooms are very, very small and do not really accommodate our class sizes, which are a little larger. So we anticipate taking out most of that wall and replacing it with a folding divider of some type, so that if we do have smaller meetings, we can actually close off those 2 rooms. The other thing that we will be doing right now, there is a solid wall here. This is classroom space, and over here, Sophia, our Montessori school director, has her office here. We'll be removing that wall and again putting a partition in here so that we can either use the larger space or divide it into 2 smaller spaces. There will be flooring upgrades throughout. We would like to install new energy efficient electrical heaters in each of the rooms. These units also include an AC, air conditioning aspect to them, so that as our climate gets warmer, we will have air conditioning capacity in that one building. We will do painting throughout the interior. We'll have new ramps and landing in the Ann Benner, from the Ann Benner room here into the courtyard. So this will be a new landing area right outside the doors. And we'll have a ramp that comes down here. We'll have decking around the magnolia tree. We have to have decking above the roots of the magnolia tree. At the same time, these doors out of Beck Hall will now have ADA access, and there will be a ramp down this way, joining this decking and then further ramping into the courtyard. In the courtyard right now, there is actually a step along the front of the RE building. And because of that, it is not accessible by a wheelchair. So we will be raising the level of the courtyard to the height of that step so that we have ADA accessibility into that building. To add a decorative feature and also some weather protection, we will be adding a trellis along the walkway here with a covering over the entry here. So imagine how we are going to be using this space in the future. We imagine the little decking here will be a wonderful stage for our kids or anyone else who wants to make a sermon or do a show from our courtyard. This will also be a wonderful stage. But more importantly, this entry will be really inviting. So, and may become one of our main entrances into our building. And what cost does this come at? Right now, we're estimating that it's going to be $929,000. A large number, I know. So here we are. In the construction drawings, the estimate is $929,000. What other things are we going to need? Furnishings. Some of the space might become conference room space. We might need tables and chairs for that. It will accommodate our high schoolers. We're not able to put the high schoolers in the new building for parking issue reasons, so this will become their new space. Other possible upgrades: double pane windows and shades. Currently, they are only single pane and very energy inefficient. Solar panels. We'll look at their roofing structure to see if the structure can handle solar panels. exterior painting and repairs, including the upgraded facade on East Santa Ynez. All told, we think that we're going to need about $1 million for this phase of the work. This phase will come several years down the line. However, as I said, we need to construct 314 before we can do the work of this phase. So the other thing that we have been looking at is how to just beautify the campus itself from the outside. And so we've engaged a landscape company called the Garden Route to help us do this. So we will have some green areas. Along Ellsworth, we're having to do a bump out for the ramp here, and we would like to take out additional sidewalk space so that this line of the sidewalk is actually the same. This width will be the same as our neighbors down here in the width that they have. So we want to add some greenery to soften up this side of the building. Along here, we already have some raised beds here. We'd also like to take out a little bit of the sidewalk in front of that so that we can create more green space. And we'll continue that green space all along here, and that line will match up with what's going on in front of the cottage. In the courtyard, we want to add a little bit of planter beds. We want to add some pots, and then some more green space back here between our trees. And then we want a sitting area here with some plants and greeneries. And right now we're anticipating using this wall space for a memory garden with a little bit of greenery in front of it. And around the corner, creating some greenery there, a bit here, a bit by the cottage back door, and of course, upgrading the greenery here and here. We have this large oak tree here that poses some problems in terms of what we can build over the roots. Basically, we can't build anything directly over the roots. So this we'll leave a lot of this in natural landscaping, but also we need some more playground areas. So we're going to create some natural playgrounds here. So there'll be tan bark on top, and then we'll use some wood elements in this area. This other area we are devoted to our preschool playground, and we'll be moving the structure that's currently in our courtyard over to this area, and then let Sophia and Tanya look at other things to put into this area for our preschoolers. We'll have a little planting bed along here so that the children can plant some vegetables. This area over here will be our main area for our older children in their playground. We have not determined what that exactly is going to look like, but again, we're thinking about very nature-based play equipment, moving maybe the tower that is currently in our play structure over here, over to this, and using some of the other wood components for the other playground components. We also want to have a seating area right next to our playgrounds, which will be covered with a trellis. We have some storage going in. We'll be removing storage in this area, creating new storage in this area, also a small cabinet here for the preschool to use as storage. And some of the storage will also be moved into this area behind Beck Hall, where we will probably just buy storage kits and maybe assemble those ourselves. The driveway right now is not in our plan, and we can do this as a separate project in the future. So our estimate right now for all of our landscaping, not including the driveway, is $278,700. So the other thing that we're looking at is the construction of 314. And the construction of this is a parallel process. We have been working with both the building department and the planning department. The building department is associated with the main property. For 314, we are working with the building department. And at today's costs, we're looking at a very minimum 1.4 to 1.6 million to construct the building here. With furnishings, we're estimating 1.8. However, I did talk to a construction expert, David Kramer, recently, and he thought that our estimates per square foot of the RE building may be a little bit low. So we could need up to about $2 million to construct the RE building itself and to upgrade the landscaping around it. Note, these are big numbers. So let's kind of look at the summary of all of this. So we have things that are in the drawings and then everything combined. Phase one, we know we're estimated it'll cost us around $751,000 at least. And if we have to do everything, it's about $900,000. For phase two, we're looking at 343, that's in our estimate. And then for everything around 400,000. Phase three, we're looking at 399,000 in the drawings and anticipating about 450,000 to have everything. Phase four, 929,000 in the drawings and about 1.1 million for everything in phase four. That's the RE building and the courtyard. Landscaping, about 280,000. And for 314, 1.6 million to 1.8 million, and maybe even 2 million. Take a breath. Those are really big numbers and a lot more than we have on hand at this time. So let's take a look at where we're standing. These are our total estimated costs. These are the funds that remain of our capital campaign funds. Oops. So this is a rough estimate of what it will cost, everything we would like, and the total amount of funds we would need to raise to make our vision a reality. Again, I ask you to really think about the legacy that we were given from our ancestors, this building, these grounds filled with hope that we could meet what was then their vision. Now we have created a new vision. And this gives us an opportunity not only to live out that vision, but to leave an amazing legacy for this congregation and for future generations. What will be our legacy? The board has just begun to look at different ways that we might be able to fund our dreams. One, the UUA does have a lending program for congregations to build new structures. Betsy is looking into that now to see what the total amount is that we might be able to borrow from the ADA or UUA, excuse me. We could take out a new mortgage on the main property. It's often been said that a church without a mortgage does not have a vision. We had a mortgage up until the 1990s. That was a result of the vision of our ancestors back in the 1960s. We can do it again. We could do another capital campaign and work together to make this happen. We could also look at how we can use these new facilities to create money. So we would need a monetization and revenue stream planning. And finally, maybe there's some suggestions out there that we haven't considered yet. The board will be dealing with this aspect of our building project. And I encourage you to get involved with this if you are wanting to help make this dream come true. So how can you help with this? It is very much a we thing. Step up and step back. There have been a lot of people who have helped with this project so far. Some have been on the committee, others have just stepped in to help with, you know, a task when they had time and when they had skill, or they wanted to learn a new skill in doing it. Many hands do make light work, and there are many roles to play. I can't tell you how much I have learned from just being in this position as chair and now co-chair of this committee. So here are some positions that we need filled. Ben mentioned that I will be stepping out of the co-chair committee. I've been doing this job for a little over 3 years now, and Pam joined me as the co-chair about a year ago, and I am so immensely grateful for her. But I'll be stepping out of that role, and I will be concentrating on the construction of the main property along with Roger Jacobs. We will be the construction managers for the project. I have been one of the main people to work with the architects on the 314 building, and we will need someone to step up and to continue that phase of our planning with the architects. The next phase, we will get it through planning, hopefully within the next month or so. And after that, we need to start on doing construction drawings with the architects. And we need someone who actually has those skills already or is willing to build those skills in working with the architect. Kelsey Lang was doing our finances, and lo and behold, she is now a new mother and has stepped out of that role. Our beloved Anne was going to step into that, and Silver, and unfortunately, she is no longer with us. So we need someone to help do some of the more simple CDTF record keeping. We're grateful for Tom McCune, who has agreed to actually do the record keeping for our construction contracts, which is a huge job. So we can walk you through this. It's not, for the CDTF, the rest of it is not a difficult process. Finally, we're going to need some website communication here. We are really hoping to take off with this construction project, and we need someone to help us communicate what's going on to all of you. And then, of course, we have just sort of project-oriented jobs. We kind of went through some of those as we went through the slides today. And, you know, if you want to raise your hand, let us know when you are willing to step into a project. We need that kind of help, because the people on the committee right now, we just can't do it all. And of course, we talked about the funding needs. And so the board is going to be working on developing funding plans, and they need your help with that as well. So again, what's our legacy going to be here? What are we leaving to future generations, in addition to building facilities that meet our current needs? Needs that have been here for over 30 years. I'm going to turn it over to Ben at this point, and thank you so much for your attention today. I know it's been long. There's a lot of information, and please go to the website to check out this presentation.
Actually, Barb, this is Betsy. I'll take it back for now.
Okay.
So thank you, Barbara, for your tremendous work over the past 3+ years. It probably would have taken at least 3 people to do what you did. And so if you are tired, I can well understand that. And we appreciate your leadership and your co-leadership, and you deserve a rest. So
Thank you.
Let's have some folks help out now, some other folks. Again, reminder is that you send your suggestions and questions to cdtf@uusanmateo.org after you read the presentation, which will be linked into our website. And then we will address those questions on February 7th